watching politics for at least a few months, then you know this. But for our new members of the CUTEservative fam, I've been skeptical of Aaron Rodgers and Shailene Woodley since day one. I don't see them lasting at all. Now, stories have come out that he's controlling and jealous. Do you remember seeing all those mainstream headlines that said 270 doctors called out Joe Rogan for being a menace to public health last week? Turns out the fake news lied bigly on that, and they're not the only liars today. Andrew Garfield lied to Emma Stone about filming the new Spider-Man, and things get even sketchier when you find out who became trillionaires during the pandemic. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics. OK Magazine is speculating that Shailene Woodley and Aaron Rodgers may be on the rocks after being together just shy of a year.
What evidence do you have?
Well, a source close to the couple is alleging that when they first got together, they both agreed to give each other a bunch of freedom, but then Aaron started making a big deal out of Shailene having guy friends, even though those relationships were totally platonic. Aaron was grilling her all the time, and she felt suffocated.
What are you doing here today?
Is this some kind of setup or something?
What do you mean?
I'm just on my way to the beach.
Do you care if your partner hangs out alone with friends of the opposite sex? And if so, why?
Whose shoes are these?
These are mine.
Whose bra is this?
I'm a secret.
Who is she?
That's my cousin.
Last week, after his Dr. Malone interview, everyone from Rolling Stone to The Guardian and Vulture posted an open letter from 270 doctors asking Spotify to do something about Joe Rogan's podcast, claiming he's a menace to public health.
That seems a little dramatic.
These doctors demanded Spotify take action against Joe Rogan by implementing a misinformation policy and claimed Rogan has a concerning history of broadcasting misinformation when it comes to the pandemic.
What? What are you scared of?
Here's the kicker. It turns out the majority of so-called doctors who signed this open letter aren't even medical doctors.
Ha-ha, you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders.
The Blaze reported that out of all of these signatories, only 82 of them were actual MD doctors. 5 of these doctors were osteopathic, more than 12 nurse practitioners signed, nearly 100 basically professors, people with PhDs or PhD candidates, registered nurses, veterinarians, a dentist, a psychologist, which of course is different than a psychiatrist, that requires an MD, physician's assistants, a biochemist, master's students, research associates, pharmacists, a laboratory supervisor, medical students, public health advisors, teachers, engineers, social workers, and even a podcast host. So I'm sorry, this podcast host says that Joe Rogan is spreading disinformation because he's just a podcast host and not a doctor, but he's a podcast host and not a doctor, but he can say something. Okay.
It feels like somebody wants to sell me something.
What a bombshell. This is the podcast host that they tried to say was a doctor, by the way. Cole, the science dude with the he, him pronouns in his bio since the dude wasn't clear enough, I guess. Cannabis specialist and anti-fascist political theory nerd.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
It's funny how the misinformation in regard to this pandemic seems to keep coming from one side. I wouldn't be surprised if the chick from Misery was on that list.
There's nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your #1 fan.
Apparently no one knew that Andrew Garfield was gonna be in the new Spider-Man No Way Home movie. Not even his former co-star and ex-girlfriend Emma Stone.
Emma kept on texting me and she was like, "Are you in this new Spider-Man film?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
What? You're stonewalling Emma too?
She was like, "Shut up, just tell me." I'm like, "I honestly don't know what." I kept it going even with her. It was hilarious.
To the end? You never admitted to Emma?
No. And then she saw it. She was like, "You're a jerk."
My favorite part of this story is that even though they aren't together anymore, they still text and are clearly super friendly. He just seems like a decent guy.
I made a choice. This is my path.
2 fun facts today. 1, Matt Walsh's episode of Dr. Phil aired today, so hopefully you recorded that on your DVR. Do people still do that anymore?
The dispute over gender pronouns.
I don't identify exclusively with being a man or a woman.
I use they and them as my pronouns.
You don't get your own pronouns. You think it's a delusion.
In school, our kids are being asked what their pronoun is.
This is a war on gender.
babies are babies without a known sex.
When they were born, we did not assign a sex.
You think it's toxic to label the child one way or the other?
New Dr. Phil.
And 2, the world's 10 richest men, including Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Bill Gates, became trillionaires during the pandemic. This is why when people ask me if I think this will ever stop and we'll go back to normal, I say, no, I don't.
Then while we're fat and sick, they're getting rich.
I think that Joe Rogan story is unbelievably important. Imagine if people came for Alex Cooper on Call Her Daddy anytime she or her guest gave destructive relationship advice. People would think that was a violation of her freedom of speech. I said what I said. So, heart this episode to spread the word. Tag a friend in the comments who's a doctor or a nurse and ask them if they've seen that story about Joe Rogan. Then share the episode to your Instagram stories and tap the save button so it shows up for people on their feed. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Poplitics. Support Poplitics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and, of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's when the real magic happens. Follow us there at Poplitics.